recording here. I'd love for you to, I guess if you can just kind of start off with just, I'm going to ask you some questions, but what are some of the, for you, as you identify your keys to building large development pools? We can just start there with some of the things that you really focus on.
Yeah, okay, cool. So the first thing that comes to mind is characteristics over numbers. That's the first thing that comes to mind, is what exactly are you looking for? Why are you looking for it? And what do you need to fill by what date? Right? Like that's what comes to mind, is you got to have a vision, right? Imagine doing anything without a vision. So what do you want to build? What do you want your district to look like? That's the first question that pops up, right? Is that, and what kind of people do you want to work with? That's the second question. So what the biggest mistake that people make, like, look, like, think about it like this, you know, most people have this fake standard that says you have to be at 100K, or I'm exaggerating, you have to be at 15K in sales to be on staff. That's not necessarily true. Mary Grace worked with me for 2 years, and we broke every single record that you could think of. And I promoted her in 2 weeks because she was the right person, right? And the right people over the numbers is that's the key. That's the biggest mistake that people make. So here was my challenge to you. What are the 5 characteristics that you're looking for? What are the 5 characteristics that you're looking for and the people that you want to work with the most? And promote it in every single meeting that you have. I just promoted it for opening comments, literally for training. Hey guys, while I was running training, this is my thing, is I was like, hey, we're the cryptocurrency of Cutco. Like you need to hop in right now, right? Like this is just, this is where we're at. Here's the characteristics that I'm looking for. If you match these characteristics your first weekend, don't be surprised if you get a call from me on Monday to be a part, at least get information about our leadership team. Right? So,
pause that, rewind, say that again.
Yeah. So it's just like, when I'm talking, it's like, hey guys, like these are the characteristics that I'm looking for in my leaders. Maybe leadership's for you, maybe leadership's not. But we only have X amount of internships left available. Here's the characteristics that we're looking for, right? If you match these characteristics your first weekend, right? Don't be surprised if you get time with me, right? And if you're interested in advancement, go ahead and put a star on this on your notes and go ahead and text your team leader, right?
I love this, because that was another issue I always had, is like, I just started the job and like, hey, let's talk about management. And it's like, huh? And so it's very like prepped. And now when you're getting a call, I feel, David, that it's like an honor. It's like, oh my gosh, he saw those characteristics in me. And like, that's why he's talking to me about it. And it's exciting and it's an honor versus like weird and feeling like some manager's desperate and they have no help. Does that make sense?
I taught this to CJ and Taylor, and they'll know this. Like this was on a region call. They had 1 combined candidate 3 weeks ago. Now they're launching 10. And it's like, I'm fully deployed. I don't have any more territories left in Louisiana. Like I had a call with Lloyd this morning. Like I'm out, right? We have 23 offices, and it's just like, because it's characteristics over numbers, right? And
when were they at 1? When did they have 1 going into the fall?
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, they were at 1 candidate combined, and I was like, hey, if they match these characteristics, you get them a meeting with me. And I closed them, and so like, that's the biggest return on investment, is developing leaders. I don't know if there's anything better, as ROI than developing leaders in your business. So, the next thing that I would say, so I promote that at every single event.
Can you do it like you're at a meeting? What are the characteristics you share? Just do it. So
yeah. So let's do exactly what I just did for training. All right, guys, let's talk about why right now is the best time to sell. Why is it the best time to be here? Number 1 is, I'll write this down, is January, right? Like, think about this. Our goal as a division is to sell over $5 million this year. And as an office, we're going to do over 2 million. Now, everybody's going to have different roles, right? We're going to have some people that win scholarships. We're going to have some people that win President Club letters. We're going to have some people that compete for silver cups. We're also going to have some people that just do this part-time. But just like any other team, all roles matter, right? Raise your hand if that makes sense. And that's what makes a team special. Now, raise your hand if you ever heard of cryptocurrency. Now, if you could go back, right? If you could go back in time and like 5 years ago and invest in cryptocurrency, would you do it? Exactly. We are the cryptocurrency, right, of Cutco. We are the fastest growing division in America. And this is not, I mean, we're running out of territories here, right? Like, I mean, everybody wants to be a part of our leadership team. So let me go ahead and share with you. What do you think, Cody, are some of the, what do you think some of the perks of working for a championship organization is, right? Exactly. Advancement opportunities, right? Income, experience, those things. Now, I'm the type of person that when I'm looking for leaders, right, I'm looking for characteristics over numbers. So I want to talk about some of these characteristics, and some of these characteristics are developed. Some of this is like supernatural for you. But if you show these characteristics your first weekend, like, don't be surprised if you get a call from me, right? Because I'm always looking for leaders in my organization. Now, here's the characteristics. Number one, positive attitude. Jacob, why do you think that's important? Exactly. Look, here's the deal. I am so busy. I run around 10 to 15 key meetings a week, right, with my top leaders. And in my busy times, right, we'll have anywhere from 300 to 500 people within my organization. So I only have time to work with people that have a positive attitude. Number two is consistency. Now, Molly, why does consistency matter? And I'm not talking about consistency just in Cutco. Now, when I think about consistency, right, I don't think just hitting the newsletter every single week. That is important, but I'm talking about consistency in habits. Did you show up today on time because it's your first day, or did you always show up on time? Right? I'm talking about consistency in habits in everyday life. The next thing that I'm looking for is working with winners. And, winning in Cutco is great, but I'm more interested in working with winners in all areas of their life. Look, the trophies are cool, but, we don't sacrifice date nights here. Right? We don't sacrifice running Ironmans, right? We don't sacrifice doing those things because our people, Piper Bialke, think about somebody like Piper. She has a 4.0 GPA. She's in a sorority. She's in grad school to become a speech pathologist, and she's on the soccer team, and she's my sales manager. You see, most people think that, as they get older, they get less busy. That's not necessarily true. Matter of fact, right? Like, the truth of the matter is, the older you get, the busier you get. For example, Molly, do you want to be a wife one day, or maybe have kids? Exactly. That's like saying you're going to be a great mom or a great dad, but be a bad husband. You got to win in all areas of your life. And we don't sacrifice values here, right? We don't sacrifice values here. We want winners in all areas of a life, right? The next thing is can I? I would write this down, C-A-N-I. Here's the things that I'm looking for is constant and never-ending improvement. We're looking for people that want to grow intentionally. And I would write down the word intentionally because there's a difference. And just growing and growing intentionally. That's the type of leaders I'm looking for. And then, last but not least, I'm looking for people that, are, the convict, like just the team player. When I think about team player, I think about cheering each other on. Good days, bad days. We don't have haters here, right? We don't have haters. You sell a cutting board, I want 13 likes on that group me, right? Because everything matters. But if you feel like you showed some of those characteristics, put a star by that. Talk to me one-on-one. Send a text to your manager, right? Because those are the things that I look for. Now, here's the deal, guys. I would be aggressive because we only have 3 spots left available. We're already expanding, right? So, this is, the most coveted position that we have, this internship. So, I can't promise anything, right? That's not what I'm trying to do here. But what I will say, is at least put your name out, show those characteristics. So that's what we're looking for in leadership, guys.
Woo! So good. Yeah. All right, we're good. I'm ready to go. No, I'm just kidding. Let's keep going. But do you guys see, and this talk was meant to be, I told him we're gonna do like kind of podcast style and kind of talk through, but like that, like even hearing like, I'm like, oh, I put that down in my training, like we used to be like such good passionate trainers, and I feel like it's gotten so watered down, and so it's so great to hear so much of this. So there's seeds planted, right? Opening comments as people are in training, and really not opening comments. I know you shared a lot happens during the interviews as well. Can you touch on that before we keep going?
Yeah, I'll touch on the interview and then I'll talk about the process too. The interview is simple. Because I know characteristics, I target early. That's it. It's just that simple. I'm not afraid to tell somebody, like I had this young lady, she's 32 years old, her name's Carrie, she has 3 kids. I said, in a post interview, I said, hey, the odds are you probably don't want to sell knives remote for the rest of your life. Have you ever thought about like running your own business? And she's like, yeah. Now she's opening up as a district manager.
Nice.
It's like, I want to go back to the characteristics. Imagine your dating life and there's 7 billion people in the world and they're like, you ready to go dating? That's a big pool of fish, right? Well, what if you knew exactly what you were looking for? It makes the game easy. It's like playing in different offenses when you're in football or whatever sport you're playing. Everybody has a different system. So I can't speak on your characteristics, but the trick, Kathy, I think, is when you know what you're looking for, you find it. Think about it, Jacob. When you got the BMW, all of a sudden, all you saw was BMWs, right? Everywhere on the road, all you saw was BMWs. Well, those 5 characteristics, now I'm looking for them everywhere I go. When somebody hops on, I'm like, hey, the old Dustin Marks, catch people doing something right. It's like, hey, I know this is your interview, but you took a lot of notes. You worked hard. You were punctual. And it looks like you have really good habits. I know it's early, but you have the characteristics of what it looks like to be a leader. Can I tell you what our leaders do? Hey, they show up 20 minutes early to get one-on-one time with me. Not everybody does that. But that's what our leaders do. I say the word leader 100 times a day. So I attract leaders. You know how like when you're a rep, you say the word sex, I say the word leader. Right? It just, that's it. So I say it so much in the interview. I say it so much in training. I say it so much during advanced training. Leader, 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 leader. Hey, remember back in the day when you would catch somebody doing something right, John, you would tap them on the shoulder and be like, you're going to be a great assistant manager one day, the way you cut that rope, right? Like find people doing the right things and praise the crap out of them. Right? And that's what it's about. So you can't praise them if you don't know what you're looking for. That's what I'll leave that with. You can't praise them if you don't know what you're looking for. Right? So, now that I know that in the interview, that's what I do. I think the biggest key is I think the biggest weakness for district managers, and I'm gonna speak on behalf of the companies, people do things when they feel like it. And like, they just like, you know what? I had a great training class. Now I'm gonna do it. I'm consistent, man. I have compound interest. I'm gonna leave you with this. If you, there's 18 weeks in a campaign. If you promoted 2 key staff members a week, no matter what your training class looked like, that's 36 people that you would promote. If you had 36 key staff members a week, how many assistant managers do you think you would have out of that? The difference between me and you is I do it every week. You do it when you feel like it. That's the difference. So I have systems and programs and tools if leadership is the biggest return on investment that you can find, right? Then why wouldn't it be in your schedule? Right? So that's in my schedule on a weekly basis, right? Like, let me ask you this, genuinely, do you do a napkin talk? Can you look at me in the eyes and say you've done a napkin talk every single week this year? Well, the truth is you're not focused on leadership, no matter who you are. Can you genuinely say that you promoted 2? Do you have a key staff program? If I looked at your programs right now, who would be able to tell me what your key staff program is? How many of you can tell me that you have a clearly defined expectations on AMIT program right now? How many of you would be able to say, I know exactly what my AMIT program is. I know exactly what I'm looking for in my AMIT program. And I know exactly when, like this week, I never do anything alone. How many times, if I do an activity, somebody shadows me? Dave does nothing alone. Nothing. This is the first thing that I've done alone in forever. Is this freaking podcast thing. I don't do anything alone. Everything that I do, people are watching because I'm like one of my PDI objectives every morning. It's like, who's shadowing me today? If I'm going to do this activity, somebody's going to shadow me.
That's huge. That's how I was as a new DM always. And it's like such a good thing to hear. And so hopefully you're all hearing that, but that was a big thing. as a pillar DM, it was like, I don't do anything unless someone's watching me, like my time. And that's really important as you guys develop your office. Some of you, I've taught you guys about this, but like the goal is that you are not on schedule. Now, that doesn't mean you are not working, right? But it's like, I have my staff. So this is something that I actually learned from Justin Donald, David. I don't know if you do this, but like the schedule is made without me on it. It has Taylor, this, that, whoever, like it's fully made that I could be gone and it runs exactly the same. So I'm not on anything, but I'm in everything. And so I'll take over this. Hey, you watch me, or I'm watching them. I'm giving feedback. I mean, that's how you develop a strong ass foundation that then you can leave every 2-3 weeks and leave for a week and come back and it's still rolling, because like the schedule is set, they know what to do. And like every time you're in, you should be evaluating, seeing how they do better. It's like, oh dude, watch me, did it. And they're like, oh, and they keep growing and learning. And that makes a really big difference in the development of people. And what I've seen too many times is people promote people, they tell them what to do, and then they go to do something else.
And it's set up for failure. It's set up for failure at that point. And that's why you have to have an AMIT program. You have to be able to, I do, we do, then you do, right? It's like the old saying, shadowing's huge, but you got to have it in your schedule, guys. Here's the deal. Every Tuesday there's a napkin talk, no matter what. It's just, there's never, it's you get what you tolerate, right? Well, like, how can you, I love being a district manager, and I would be a district manager for a very, very, very long time if I wasn't a division manager. But what I love the most is working with my high performers. That's what I love the most, right? And I believe that, but when I spend time with my best people, it's a trickle down effect in leadership, right? If I spend time with them, and I do a great job with them, it trickles down. So my question to you is, every Tuesday, do you have a napkin talk? Every Wednesday, every time you have a team meeting, are you promoting 2 key staff members? No matter what. And you know what? It's compound interest. There's no shortcuts. It doesn't happen overnight, right? But, in 1 month, where would your business be in February if you promoted 8 key staff members and 2 AMITs? Think about it. Where would your business be if you just did it every single week, no matter what? I want to tell you a quick little story. I have a great Dom. His name's Eli Watkins. He's phenomenal. And he's great. I took him off the schedule and I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to work for the next 2 weeks. You're not allowed to work except PDI and your team. You're going to watch everything I do and take notes. Right? And like, I just showed him the way. And it's like, it's better to do that now than it is during the summer. So do it every single week, no matter what. That's my biggest tip. And clearly define, what is your programs? Do you have a future leaders meeting? As a division manager, every single week, when anybody who hits $1,000 comes to my future leaders meetings, that's their opportunity to meet David Roy.
Awesome. So the conversation, I was telling them earlier about just some of the things that you coach your assistant managers, like even in interviews, right? That when they're posting someone and just like sharing that vision. I don't know if you want to share a couple examples of like an older applicant or a sharp applicant or lower, like how they're already planting seeds for possibility of advancement.
Yeah, that's a good question. We role play that, and like, we do a lot of that in the staff meetings. We role play a ton of that in the staff meetings. So, our staff meetings are simply how to build a business. Me and Jacob went to Business Mastery. The only way you grow a business is by knowing the numbers. So we're very blunt and very honest on the numbers. And then everything else is like skill-based. So this doesn't, and we role play, but I think the key is, Kathy, goes back to what we just said. This is what we do, and I think this is going to be a double parter. Okay, this is what I would do on a day 2 PC, and this is what I would do during an interview. I'm not going to put a 19-year-old kid with like a 40-year-old person, right? So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to show them how to do it. That's what I would do, right? I would show them how to do it, or at least if I wasn't there, my staff knows that whoever's done that before, that person's not allowed to do that until they're shadowed. That's really the answer, Jacob, is they don't do that without shadowing first. There's never like I'm not just going to throw you in the fire. And I think that there's growth from that. I get it. But at the same time, like, I think people should watch first. I'll give you an example. I think I'm pretty decent at sales, but I'm the number one. My team was the number one recruiting office in the nation last year. We launched 589 people, but my PPR was horrible. It was the worst that it's ever been. Matter of fact, my first weekend was 151. Can you imagine that? Some of you are laughing at me, right? Now, a part of that is because I had a 58% zero selling ratio. Think about that. 58. And by the way, I know that's laughable, but that was what the nation was too. So I was average. And I had to ask myself a question. I said, and this is also the interview too. I said, am I really a good trainer? Because I'm not getting the results that I want. So here's what I did, Kathy. For day 2 PCs, when we teach them how to do the right demos, every single person shadowed me. And guess what happened, Jacob? We went from 151 to 880. We had a 30% zero seller ratio. And then what I did is I took my whole staff and I created a program. And I documented every single thing I did. And I said, this is the program, this is the system, let's role play it. Because they can't do that forever, right? Always shadow me. So I think the answer, and I don't know if that's really what you want, but I try my hardest to let them shadow, and I role play those conversations. And also on a very micro scale and macro scale, I got fed up with the numbers and I measured everything as a division. We have this divisional chart that averages zero sellers, PPR, average first order, show to training, etc. that we look over. But I did that with my staff, dude. Like every single person on my staff has this chart and they're responsible. When somebody gets 3 reps on their team, they have to tell me how many zero sellers they have. They have to tell me how many orders they get. They have to know their averages. Look, I'm not relying on hope this summer for branches to do well. No, you're going to know you do well because there's the numbers. And so we're doing those things, and I think that's been helping a ton. And I started off with that conversation with, hey, some of these numbers aren't going to be sexy, but there's ownership in this, right? Let's start from the beginning. And what's great is every week I look at Jacob Kinnemore's numbers and I say, hey, you only had 40% of people make a sale. The average order was 400, first weekend. Let's role play how to increase that. And like, we're brutally honest, Mike. Like all this BS, like people want shortcuts. Like they're like, well, that person didn't talk to me out of training. That is a zero seller. Don't tell me like that person didn't answer my text. You should have built a better relationship. Let's work on that. Your day 1 PDI should have been better. Let's work on that. So now that I'm looking at every single person's numbers, I know exactly how to coach them. Even my staff. Right. So it's really easy.
What numbers are you looking at every single week?
Yeah, I'll go through them with you. Every single week, show to training. So every single one of my staff knows, right? How many people? So show to training is number 1. Number 2 is amount, the average order number per rep, right? And here's why that was important. Is our lifetime rep, and this is why we started focusing on it, is our lifetime rep last year, which was the worst that I've had, was 1047. In order for me to 2 million this year and do well over $1 million in new, I needed to average 1407. So I needed to average another order. So we've been measuring that, right? So essentially we do 2 million by increasing 1 order for fast start. Right? That was our one thing.
And when you say average order per rep, you're saying they have 3 reps. They're like, Johnny averaged $300 for his sales. So-and-so averaged 50. This one averaged 1,500.
Both. So, and average amount of orders. I'm at so what I want to know.
I'm saying you're getting the average individually for each of the 3 people, or you're getting the average of their 3.
The average of the 3. Yep. So if Johnny has a rep of 3 people first weekend, right? I want to know what the average sale was. Like let's just say, what if you take 1,200 plus 200 plus 0, that's what their first weekend PPR was, and how many orders did they collect, right? So those are the things that I'm looking for with training. And then I'm looking for the percentage of zero sellers. And then I'm looking for show percentage to advanced training, because we sucked at that for the longest, right? And this last week we had 10 out of 14 shows, so not great, but it's an improvement, right? And my people are like, we do things a little bit differently. I heard Kathy, you were talking about this a little bit ago. So it kind of, when we're gonna launch 15 people this week, we launched 15 people last week. We had 2 pages of people at the team meeting last week. Look, our team like doesn't have time to sit there and have 3-hour PR blitzes. So here's what I measure, Kathy, is no matter what, our people are responsible for getting 5 people, right? No matter what, into training. And we do a big part of that by doing their top 5. Right? So our people are responsible, and we teach them how to like duplicate, right? And I think that's really important. Those are some of the big things that I'm looking at, as an office. And then what I do.
When you're saying they get 5 people in the training, it's people that they recruited on campus from PRs, from whatever it is, get 5 in from your work.
Correct. Yeah. And then, to kind of show you, this is what I do, right? So my Google Drive, let's see. Okay. So, and then as I go through every single week, and this is pretty simplistic, but, let's say like Jared or Eli, right? This is a good one. Eli, like these are college kids with, 13 people on their team. Think about that, man. Like that's crazy. So, one of the things that I'm always looking right at is, hey, I'm teaching them how to be branches. Who are you duplicating this week? All right. So Skylar, Jack, and Sydney. Okay, if we're going to duplicate them, like, how are we going to do that? Okay, great. Awesome. All right. Who's going to be our role players this week? Who's going to be our rabbits this week? Who's going to be our 10K fast starter this week? Right? And I don't treat my people like assistant managers, right? I treat them like branches, right? Every single one, rabbits, duplicate, role. What is their roles, right? Are these people 250 to 500 right here, right? Like, who do we need to duplicate on your team? Every single person has very clear expectations on exactly who they need to duplicate. You could be like sales only takes you so far in this business. If you can't duplicate leaders, your branch or district won't be sustainable. So I teach my people very early, and I'm like, hey, and sometimes I ask questions, Kathy. I'm like, hey, Kathy, who on your team this weekend showed the characteristics of what it looks like to be a leader? Oh, cool. Hey, when do you think, you can have the conversation about promoting the key staff? Awesome. Would you like to cover that at the team meeting? Hey, you know what, Kathy? You know what I love about you is, when I read this John Maxwell book, 21 Laws of Leadership, leaders don't create followers, leaders develop leaders. And that's what you're doing right now as an assistant manager. This is why you're going to crush it as a branch. This is why you're going to crush it as a district, because you're proving to yourself that you could develop leaders by looking for certain characteristics. Great job, Kathy.
Thanks. That's awesome, David. So we're kind of like, I'm kind of all out of order, but we talked about stuff interview. We talked about when they're in training, what you're sharing in training. You mentioned, and I'd love for you to share some keys like post training. So in training, we went ahead and gave them a heads up, and you told them, and you gave that talk to us of like, hey, we've got this, we've got these openings, spinning the vision, also creating urgency. Did you guys all hear that, right? Where he's like, we have 3 spots left, make sure you talk to a manager, make sure whatever. So there's urgency created for it. And now, we're keeping an eye, we're helping, we're coaching, we're guiding people. And now we get to a place where they know, like they get a call or a text from David or from me, or they're like, oh, or from the DM, they're like, oh, and hey, I'd love to chat with you about this, or hey, loved how I saw this, or whatever, complimenting some characteristic that you saw in them, saying, I'd really love to meet to talk more about future opportunities. Or what's your verb, like, David, when you have someone that you're going to reach out to, do you text them? Do you call? What's your process for reaching out to people? It could be different every time, but I'd love to know.
It's crazy because it's kind of 50-50. 50% of the time they reach out to me. They're like, hey, I'm interested in leadership, and can you tell
your AMs to tell them like, hey, message him if you want to know, so you can get on his radar quicker.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So that's part of the PDI. And then sometimes like I reach out to them and it's just like a text and it's as simple as, hey Jacob, I've been, I know I didn't work with you personally this weekend, but you've been doing such a good job on the group me. You've been cheering everybody on. I love, look, I know I'm not coaching you, but I know you had a no sale. I know you got rescheduled. And what's cool is I just loved your attitude and how you responded. And because I think that you have the characteristics of being a champion, I would like to talk to you about this. When are you available? Blank or blank.
Cool.
And I'm always talking about characteristics. And then once
Mhm.
I have that meeting, it's a 30-minute meeting and I have like an outline for that kind of, but it's, I make it to where they're excited about it.
Mhm. And would you be willing to share like some of the stuff that you go through with them when you do meet with them?
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and pull it up right now.
Oh, show.
All right. A second.
By the way, what we're doing right now, and this is actually, I would say it's probably the number one thing that helped me grow in my business, this and scripting when I was a newer manager. But my manager did a really great job. And I made a note for myself. I'm like, I want to get someone who's top 5 new business every week, or someone I just know is a big ass kicker, DVM or a DM to like every Friday morning. And we'll talk about it after, but like, I want to move our calls to Fridays from 9 to 10:30 a.m. so they don't interrupt with anything. We can talk about the week, the cycle finished of recruiting. We can look into the new week, what we need to do or whatever, but also like every week be learning, have someone come on for 30 minutes, give tips, and then make sure we have a good plan going into the next week. So I think this year for me is growth. It's about growth. It's about getting back to the basics, right? And it's getting really sound foundation that we can all build upon, because we're all in rebuilding right now, and so really making sure that we do it right. And so I need it for me. It's just good refreshers, and I'm gonna bring it for you guys. The more I have this, but I think we can all, get value from this.
Thursday is going to be a huge thing, especially for the new class coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, David.
So, hey, Jacob, look, obviously, look, congratulations on your first weekend, or your first 10 days, man. Look, you've shown all the characteristics. And I just want to say, I'm a really busy guy. And for you to be a part of this meeting just kind of shows, I've heard so much about you. And, just so you know, Michael has built you up. You may not know that I know this, but I know how you responded when you had to reschedule. I know how you responded when you had a no show. I know that you went out of your way and gave, Molly your top 5, and you just showed all the characteristics. I want to thank you for expressing that. And my objective today is really just kind of share you what we have available for our internship program. And this is a very selective group, and I'm gonna kind of get why in a second, but you're a smart guy, Jacob. I mean, when you walk past McDonald's right now, what do you see? You see a $1,500 signing bonus, don't you? When you walk past U-Haul, I was moving the other day, and when you walk past U-Haul, what do you see? A $3,000 signing bonus. Why are you interested in this? I'll tell you why. Because lifetime skills is the biggest return on investment that you can have, right? And the truth of the matter is the reason why they're so desperate, right, to recruit. And we have people, you saw the training classes. The reason why we don't have that issues is because we provide the skills that are going to last a lifetime. That's what we provide. So I want to walk you through what is the internship program. What does that even look like, right? And like once again, this is a super selective process, and I'll go ahead and tell you why.
Good job, everybody. Stephanie, go on.
Oh, okay, cool. So then what I would do from there is I would just dive in. I'd be like, so the internship program that we have available is equivalent to a Harvard MBA. Some really, really successful people in the past have done it. When I think about Josh Parham, ended up running a branch and went on to work at $1 million listings, right? I think about Matt Maselli, who's now running his own business in Boston for a drone company. He ended up running a branch. I think about people, like Lucas Farnazari, who got a job at Tesla, right out of college, and he got picked over the people from Harvard and Yale. By the way, he was an average student. He had a 2.5 GPA, and he went to school at Phoenix Online University. Jacob, how many people do you think is graduating this year? Oh my God, you guessed it, 4 million people. Now, Jacob, what's your major? What percentage of your people that you're graduating with? So you're in the medical field. So you think it's fair to say that 100 to 150,000 people are graduating the medical field, right? Exactly. Now, if that's the case, every single one of them is going to have one thing in common. They're all going to have shadowing. They're all going to do internships. They're all going to do all these different things on the medical field, right? What's going to make you stand out? What separates you, Jacob, from you and the other 150,000 people that are going to graduate with your degree this year? What? It's going to be experience. And then a time where, look, do you know anybody that's been affected by COVID that's maybe lost their business? In a time where, like people are struggling to keep their business open, how impressive do you think it looks, Jacob, for a 18 to 24-year-old to be able to run their own business and generate revenue during these times? Exactly. So let me walk you through the way this works. The reason why we're so selective on the people that we choose is the first perk is our representatives get $6,000. Now, Jacob, do you think I just want to give that to anybody? Exactly. Right. That's why, look, I worked with over 1,326 people last year as a division. We were the top recruiting offices in the division, in the whole nation. And we only have 25 spots available. That means that the people that get this internship, you're a smart guy, Jacob. It's pointed to you're 0.01%. So if you can be a part of this conversation, just shows the type of person you are. Right? 1,300 people, 25 spots. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I've ran other businesses before. And you're a smart guy. Once again, I remember working for a company called 1-800-Repairs. And, do you think they just gave me money? No, I had to find investors. I had angel investors. I had to do all these different things. And when I started up those other businesses, those people had equity in the company. So what's great is our people don't even pay back that money. They use that money to start their business. How cool is that? Isn't that great? Right? Number two is the way this starts is our reps, right, learn how to generate applications. Hey, Jacob, why do you think no matter what your dream job is, you think that's an important skill to have? Why do you think that's a lifetime skill that's going to benefit you 20, 30, 40 years down the road?
You always want new people or new customers.
Yeah. And by the way, even if you're going to be a teacher, like you probably, look, I might be speaking behind, I might be out the box here, but you're probably going to be somebody that has different sources of income. And the truth of the matter is you're probably going to have to learn those things eventually anyway. So what would it look like for you, Kathy, if you were to work with anywhere from 30 to 150 people this summer? What do you think that would do for your resume? Well, McDonald's, right, can't even get somebody to work with them, and you're working with 30 to 150 people. What kind of skills do you think you would learn? Number two is you would learn, not only would you be able to do that, but you'd be able to produce anywhere from 30 to 150,000 plus in revenue. Now, what's great about that, right, is that we have the programs and systems and tools for anybody to be successful, right? Now, John, how long do you think the average restaurant is in business before they profit? I was reading a book called Shoe Dog, and I remember when Nike had their first $1 billion week and they made zero money. Okay? And check this out. Our people profit their first week. Isn't that incredible? They make on average anywhere from 15 to 17%. Right? Now, on top of that, I might be biased here, but I have a lot of big goals in my life. Just this summer, I'm opening up a snowball stand. I'm doing some real estate stuff. Do you think I'm the person, Jacob, that's going to work at the snowball stand? Probably not, right? What do you think is going to have to happen? I'm going to have to do what? Develop what? Leaders. And the biggest skill that you can ever create in your life, your biggest ROI, is being able to duplicate people. And that's what we teach. We teach the duplication leader process. Okay? And imagine being able to create your own staff of 5 to 7 people just like you. Right? Now, we teach people how to create a culture. Right? Claudia, why do you think it's so important for young people to learn how to create a culture? Exactly. Right? How do you think that's going to help you in your future? Awesome. Now, so then I go through all of the perks. Okay? And then what I do is I'll kind of go back and I'll be like, so do you see why, we only work with the top 0.1%? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, do you see why I don't want to just work with anybody? Now, do you think this stuff's easy, Jacob? No. What characteristics do you think you need to be able to complete something like this? Grit, championship mindset. And that's why you're here today. Now, look, obviously we only have X amount of spots. Today I have another 10 interviews that I have to run. So you're competing against not just my office, but CJ's office and Taylor's office, right? So I have a lot of leaders that I'm meeting with you. Hey, Jacob, why do you think I should even consider you for something like this?
Because I'm motivated and driven in all of the 5 characteristics you said earlier.
Okay, cool. A lot of people are motivated. Is there any time in your life where, maybe you were behind in your life and, you overcame it and you became a champion? Oh, cool. Awesome. Hey, that's why I'm talking with you right now, is because you have winning characteristics even outside the business, right? You're a winner. You just don't know it yet, right? That's awesome. Hey, look, I have a lot more interviews that I need to do. I kind of got what I need. Here's kind of where I'm at. I'm looking to make decisions over the next 2 weeks because I have to let my boss know. So these next 2 weeks are important. Here's some action steps, right, that are really important over the next few weeks before our follow-up meeting. Number 1 is consistency in sales. Number 2, now I just gave a ton of value. Build the team. And number 3, I want a letter of intent. And in my letter of intent, right, here's what I want, right? A, why do you think you would be a great branch manager? B, what skills would you like to gain? Right? And C, what else do I say? How do you think this could help you with your future? And then, and I'm like, hey, it's a competitive time, Kathy. So, I want this, the letter of intent should be due by Monday. And this is like, if it's a Thursday, I'm like, but if I were you, I don't know, like, I've got to make some decisions. So I'd probably get it done sooner. Look, it's due on Monday, but if I were you, I'd probably get it sooner. So, hey, Jacob, do you have any questions moving forward? Okay. Hey, now, last thing, buddy, one thing I didn't tell you is we're going to get you to shadow this week. Right? And then I put it in their planner. And I create leaders.
Freaking awesome. So good. I'm like, I wrote here and here and here. It's going crazy because I wrote too much. I have like 4 pages of notes. I love it. And I just listening to you, David. Obviously we've been in the business for a long time. I can't believe I've been in the business 20 years now. Just the energy, the fire, the excitement that you bring to it, but also just like watching you have this conversation. I don't know that I've ever fully watched you in action, right? I haven't cross-trained with you, I haven't watched you work, and hearing you have these conversations, holy shit, like you've got it, right? Like not a lot of people know how to do all that, and like what David just did is fucking brilliant. And just that, all the like the desire, the vision, the push away, the urgency, all the things that you want, that people are like chomping at the bit to be able to have a chance to have a spot on your team. That's what you want to create, right? Like people who fight for that. And I remember that was a huge thing, like back in the day when our district was crushing it year after year, winning silver cups. It's like everyone was just like, I want to have a spot as a leader on this championship team, anyway, fucking brilliant, by the way. Phenomenal job with that. Yeah, so good. I'm like, I don't even know what to say next. I'm just like, what else do you want to talk to us about? Any other nuggets, any other tips that you had, things you might've shared on the region call that we can just regurgitate here, but any other tips that you feel in terms of developing, huge pools of people, or just things that work for you, or things that you've seen some of your guys not do that you then fixed, right? And then I have one last question for you, and I'll open it up to them. Okay, my last thing that I would give to you is, I find so many people, and I'm just going to call it for what it is, I'm just being honest, is so many people, we would talk about the PPR of the company, right? And people always say, they're like, well, yes,
live demos is better. Of course it is, right? Like, of course live demos are better. Of course, like giving people products better, right? Like, but I don't know about you, but I love the remote life as well. And I don't think that's leaving. And I think too many people are brushing it under the rug. And I don't think they're fixing the damn problem, right? And what I'm on a mission to do is have the same exact results in person than I do in virtuals, right? Like I am on a mission to get that done. And I've done a lot of thinking about this, and this is something that's really helped my PPR. Why is our PPR low? Why is our zero sellers so low? And I brought it down to the source. When back in the day, when we were in person, even when people didn't use the script when they were on phoning, what would happen is they would show up to these houses, and people would still forget about them. That's normal, right? People would forget, and they'd be like, "Oh shit, I forgot you were coming. Let's do the demo." We don't have that anymore. So what's happening is online is the whole company, once somebody has that first no sale or that second no sale, a lot of times they just don't answer you anymore. I'm sure all of you can relate. And you're losing a ton of people. So here's what I did. I kept every single person in my training, okay? And the biggest difference that I implemented that I used to do that I haven't done in a long time is I spent 10 minutes on the fast start process, right? What is a fast start process? And some of the stories that I'm sharing is like, hey, think about when you were driving, right? And you were driving a car. Remember when you were first driving and like you wouldn't even text or have coffee in the beginning because you were freaking out because like everything was so tough. And then all of a sudden you learned how to drive. So one thing that I want everybody to write down is that it clicks differently for every single person. Here's why. Now, Jacob, you might get off to a really fast start, right? John, you might hit your first promotion on the third day. And then what I do is I show commission statements of every single person and how it clicks differently. And I share my screen. And I know that's simple, but nobody's left after their first weekend. And we have people that are making sales on their 6th day on the job now because they know that, guess what? We don't quit, we work that 10 days. And maybe y'all have a different problem, but I think as a nation, as a company, we've been struggling with that. And I think I'm on to some good things with that. We have nobody has quit, not one person. And we're launching big numbers because we're just reselling the process of a fast start. There's going to be good days. Some of the things that we started implementing was almost like push mentality. 3 good days, 3 bad days, 3 great days, wild card day. And then like when we talk to people, Cody, it's like, hey, today's a wild card day. You don't have any demos, right? Like, let me show you how people have won wild card days in the past. And then you teach them how to win. Oh, there you go. That's the characteristics of a champion, right? Like that type of stuff. So I think that's helped a little bit. That's the only thing that I would say is a little bit different is our PPR has increased and the best way to develop leaders is to keep them around, and they've got to make it to advanced training.
Yeah, I love it. And my last question was like with your manager, like for the managers, right? Obviously you're a DVM, right? So like a lot of this is stuff that like it's it's the same, but a little different promotion. How do you have your CJs, kind of like all your guys? I mean, I know how to do it, but I want you to share. How do you have your guys utilize you and leverage you, right? Like what are their conversations they're saying with people? Because it would be like, we have this for the division or David's looking for this. Like, can you talk about that? Like, do you coach them at all on what to say or how to really utilize you to leverage their office, right? Because obviously the more they utilize you, the more, they can elevate.
I'll go over 3 things really quickly. Number one is, before I get to that is every single one of my district managers has leadership in their schedule. That's number one. Like you got to have it in the schedule, right? So,
and that would be what, when you say leadership in the schedule, that's
napkin talks and promoting key staff members. Like no matter what, they have to have that in their schedule, right? Number 2 is anything that I do is programmed, right? I would take a second and Kathy, like as a DVM, as I was going through so much stuff, I realized how old school a lot of things were and how many things changed. And some things like are just golden, right? But there were also some things where I was like, holy crap, like I need to fix. So I went through the remote interview and I put what I would say in every single interview. So every single assistant manager says it, every single district manager says it, etc. And then the last thing was like, how do they build me up? Right? I talk a lot. It does help that I do divisional training. So the only person that's not, so, okay, it's only me, Taylor, and CJ, right? So Taylor does his own thing. I mean, I'm sorry, CJ does his own thing. Me and Taylor do our thing together. Taylor's running training for me right now. So it helps that me and Taylor are the best recruiters. So most people get to see me. But I don't run training. All I do is opening comments. That's all I do. Right? Taylor does the rest. So when I'm in trainings that first time where I'm like, hey, if you're a part of like Taylor's office, make sure you text Taylor. I specifically say that. Make sure you text Taylor and make sure, and then Taylor will get back with me and we'll have a meeting. But we have our SEC calls on Tuesday mornings, at 8 a.m. And, we every single week, you can't grow what you can't measure, right, Kathy? So every single week we review that and we say, all right, who's the new leaders? Like I'm telling you, I say that word all the time. All right, everybody, go ahead, pull up your depth charts. And everybody pulls up their depth charts. Every district manager pulls up their depth chart. And I was like, who are we adding to the depth chart this week? Who's the new leaders and why? And they're selling me on their depth chart and their new leaders that they found. And then from there, Kathy, I would just simply say, okay, are we at a point where I need to meet with them? Okay, great. Here, let's send a text. Dude, we'll send that text sometimes right there, where it's a three-way text and it's just like something as simple. And I could share it with you, Kathy. I could text it to you later, but all it is like, hey, I was in my district manager meeting with my boss, with Dave, the division manager, and I was just really building you up because you have, I know you're new, but you showed all the characteristics of being a leader. And Dave is really, really, really busy, but he did, I had to really sell him on this, but he decided that he wanted to get at least an hour with you this week. When can you carve some time up to get some time with Dave? And it's just like they use me in the three-way text and they build it up. They build up how busy I am. They build up how special the moment is. And then I get that meeting and I have all the leverage in the world. So it's a partnership, Kathy. Just like you said, it's a partnership, right? Our district managers, they have so much leverage and they have to build me up.
Yeah.
Or my job's going to be a lot harder if they don't.
Yeah, exactly. I will tell you guys, like, I was really good at having all these conversations. I was really good when I was a DM. But what I was fucking amazing at was utilizing Matt King and then Jeff Gamboa. And Matt King was my DVM and then Jeff was my DVM. And I was like, oh, Jeff is looking for this or Matt's looking for, like, it was always like everything was like, oh, DVM's looking for this. I think you could be a great fit, da, 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 da. And like, I always use that. And like I said, it's a partnership because then I'm like, oh, and then I build you up and I'm like, hey, you do the right things. Like, and I'm building you up. And it's like, we're able to do so much more together and I can impact your people and your development and your growth. But what I see is too many DMs try to do it on their own. And I did that my first couple of years. I tried to do it on my own, 04. I tried to do it on my own, 05. I tried to do it on my own. Actually end of 05, I was like, I can't do this on my own. Thankfully I had that realization. I was about to quit, but then I started mentoring with Justin Donald and Rachel Glock and people, Ryan Casey, that helped me in the business. And I went cross training. And then in 2006, Matt took me under his wing and really like, I learned because watching their offices, right? They always talked about how they built up the DVM, right? Rachel wasn't the DVM, but I watched her every conversation about future and leadership. It was like, oh, and, Mr. Kelly or, whether it was Earl or this or that, whoever it was, like how they built that up. I watched Justin at the time. Justin wasn't a DVM yet, when I was watching him in 05 and watching how he built up Mike Muriel. And by the way, like, even if someone in the nation doesn't have the best relationship with their DVM, the smart ones know, utilize them anyway to make you more money. Because if you use them the right way, they will make you more money. And hopefully no one in here hates me, but I'm here to support, but like, I'm just saying, like, some people just don't have close relationships, but the smart ones understand that it still helps their business, right? And so are you utilizing that? And so I always, like, I find it was like, okay, all these people I'm watching crushing it, like they always talk about their DBM, they always have this in the conversations. And I started doing that in 2006. And in 2006, we had our first $1 million year. It was very exciting. And the next year in 2007, we were number one in the company. Number one DM, number two in the company. And you know who was number one? My DVM, and it was this partnership. And I was like, all right, let's go. And we were like growing together, working together, talking together, and it makes a really big impact. So how much do the people in your organizations hear my name? How much? I know John, I hear him talk about me a lot, but I don't know that every other office does at the level of that, right? I know I've heard Claudia conversations and how she builds up, but it's not just a one-time thing, right? Like how he talks about leaders all the time. It's like, oh, an impressive DVM, get on Kathy's radar, get on Kathy's radar, get on Kathy's radar. That was like Jeff's like mantra, like get on Mr. Gamboa's radar, get on Mr. Gamboa's radar. So everyone said that. And I mean, even people would text and say like, what do I need to do to get on his radar? Like, it was just like, that was his thing, right? And so whatever it is, it's like, are you guys promoting like, hey, get on Mrs. Kristen's radar? Like, I want to help you get on her radar because she makes all the final decisions, right? Like, are you leveraging that, or are you trying to do it on your own? Don't try to do it on your own. We're going to get a lot more done if we do it together. Cool. Any last things that you have, David, before we roll? Thank you so much for your time, by the way. This has been amazing.
Look, like I'll wrap up with consistency breeds champions. It's not, me and Kathy were talking about this at the DVM meeting. There's no shortcuts. Like, there's no shortcuts. Like, if it doesn't work this week, it'll work 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks. Like, there's no shortcuts in this game. You got to do it every week. Don't say the word leader one time today and be like, oh, well, it didn't work. Right? Dave's a liar. Like, look, I'm telling you, the programs work. Like, put it in your schedule for the next month. That's what I'll challenge you to do. Right? For the next month, put it in your schedule. You'll see a big difference. You'll see a huge difference. So that's all I got, guys.
Amazing. So good. Thank you. Before he rolls, anyone have any quick questions or anything you want to expand on?
Can I say like 2 things real quick?
Yeah.
Number one, Dave, thank you so much. I was watching your video with my team in our PCs. We watched just like segments of you, Brian, Holman, and Kathy in our PCs. And I was just, it was like, I think like around this time last year where you kind of, a similar talk about development. And it was kind of crazy because you were talking about Taylor going out and running his branch. And now just to see a circle and how you guys are working together, that's just really cool and really inspiring. Like, okay, I can do this. And thank you for I just looked, so I started reading to you guys, but this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a You Know What, and it says like, don't be, I was trying to find the page, but it's like, don't be afraid to start by thinking big, something that they talk about here. And that's something that you really challenged me. And I think that it kind of lit a fire in our entire division of like I used to be scared of like, oh, you can sell $10,000 in your press. I did it, but like, I also felt like I learned from Kathy, so I had the best. I wasn't at her level, so I couldn't teach someone to do it. Who says I'm not able to do that? We have you guys, and I can learn. And I'm never going to get there if I have that scarce mentality. So I just want to thank you for like pushing all of us to want to do that and talk big and think big, because it's really motivating. And then number 2, I guess like one of my biggest takeaways is like teach people how to win. Not just in the job. That's been really helpful because one of my kids, he made a soccer team, for varsity soccer, which is really exciting. He was a little nervous. He was practicing a bunch, but I was like, get your butt up, go at 7 o'clock. He go to 7 o'clock, 4 days a week in the off season to work out. And now he's on his varsity soccer team. And we bought jerseys. We're going to go watch him play soccer for senior year of high school. But I just want to praise you and thank you for that. Cause I thought winners was just like, oh, you gotta be good at phone calls. I
got chills right now. 2 years ago, I didn't feel like I was a winner. I was working for a struggling company, and I was listening to this podcast with Dan Cassetta and Brandon Brown, and he said something that triggered the crap out of me, man. Dan Cassetta said, if I can compliment Brandon Brown, if I can find one word that exemplifies Brandon Brown, it's winner. And it just triggered me. And I was just like, I want somebody to say that about me. I was like, that would be like the best compliment of all time. If somebody was like, Dave, if one word on the grave, right? What's that like one winner? I was like, shit. And then there was this moment of like, am I actually a winner? And it was like, it's cool, John, because, people don't stick, like sometimes people stick around with Cutco for a long time, dude, but the majority of people, use this as a stepping stool. As a leader, way beyond Cutco, if they're still using the skills that you taught them, you won. Like way beyond Cutco, man. When they leave Cutco and they're married and they're creating their budget together because they're good at time management or whatever they're doing because of the skills that they learned, like if they're still using your philosophies 10 years after they left your office, you created a legacy, John. And that's what it's about, man. It's about those things. It's not about just selling knives. It's about creating legacies. That's cool that you think that way.
I love it.
I actually just wrote winner on this like Cutco. You go back in the day. I'm just gonna put it on my laptop. If someone hasn't told you that, you are a winner, sir. So I appreciate it.
Yes, that's for sure. Love it. Any other comments or questions, Spencer?
Yeah, I do have a question. When it goes to like Taylor and CJ, you were talking about how they had one combined, applicant for GCLA, yada yada, going into, and now they have a full staff. Did they have those people on the team already, or did they really create that in 3 weeks? And if that's the case, what were you having so far?
The majority of people that they had, maybe a few people they didn't, but the majority of people they already had. Like I said, once again, not really once again, but I sat down with them, Spencer, and I said, okay, let's go through your roster, right? And as we went through your roster, I said, who on your team right now has the characteristics, right, that we're looking for in leadership? And you'll find, and Kathy, you'll see this too, is our DMs. I don't know why they feel like, I guess it's just a very old school way of thinking that you have to be at $10,000 in sales or $15,000 in sales or 20. Like, what makes you a leader isn't your personal sales. I think you should sell because law of the lid and law of, like leading from the front. Like, I get that, right? Like, I do think that those matter, but I don't think that's what makes you a leader, right? I don't think that's the only thing. So what I did is, Spencer, I know this is super simple. I went to their roster and I said, who shows these characteristics? Get me a meeting with them. And when I got a meeting with them and they built me up, I closed them. That's what I did.
Yeah. And I know we had talked about, you had some people reach back out. Like, this is so I guess this will be the last thing, I promise. If these guys are like, all right, I want to build my crew, like in GCK, we haven't had a lot of recruiting. So obviously one, it's who's on the team right now, right? That has characteristics. 2, what's next? What do they should be looking at?
So let's just say we don't have a lot of momentum and we don't have like a big team. I would come with what's first, which is recruiting. And what I would do probably is I would pick your top X amount of people that you've had over the last few months if you don't have a lot of momentum. And I would personally, as a district manager, probably try to contact some of those people. I would try to pick from your top people. That's probably what I would do. I would build, one thing that you should be doing is building your Snapchats now. If you wait, the biggest reason why people don't do well with Snapchat, and I've told this to many divisions, people are always like, why is your Snapchat so different? It's because I built it for 4 months. I don't build it for 10 days. People start trying to build their Snapchat, and they want good results, but you don't build it, right? Imagine this, John. Imagine you adding 200 people a day on Snapchat for the next 90 days. Now, imagine you being super stressed out trying to do it all after company trip. Right? Big difference, right? It's the power of compound interest. So if I were y'all, right, like I would start building our Snapchats as big as possible. That's a key thing, but I would focus on, you got to get creative, just like Kathy used to talk about, is if I had zero momentum, I'm looking at like past reps, I'm looking at siblings, I'm looking at people who are I would put on a piece of paper, who are the right people, ?
Mm-hmm. And don't just look at last year. Like, I'm looking at the last 5 years.
I would literally on a piece of paper, write this down. Who are the right people? ? Right? And then I would literally make a list like you would as a brand new rep, a names list of the right people over the last 5 years.
By the way, when you guys get your list, when you order your list and you look at it, like we know this, but even I caught myself going, oh, I know who the best people would be. And then I was like, let me just pull up my old list just to see if I missed anyone. I got like 10 more people just from looking at it that I forgot. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that person, like people that were just there for a week and left or whatever. And so if, like I have a pretty good recollection of people and I left people out, like there's people out there, right? And so even ordering your list from the last 5, 7 years, I'm doing 5 years because so much in the world has changed in the last 3 years, and there's people that before might've been set and they're not anymore. And they're looking for a change of pace or they're looking for that. And so we might find some DMs out of that, right? But also some people that wanted to run their own business never got to, and they're like, what, that would be really cool to be able to come back and do that, and so there's, anyway, so that's something, because for us, we don't have a ton of recruits right now. We don't have a large team right now. And looking and saying, okay, who do we have, from the past years, not just last year. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, Jacob, like you have so many sharp people on your team. Like I would sit them down and create some type of incentive, and I would get their top 5, or I would tell them to do Snapchat program. Here's the deal: we all know this. All you need is one. You need one rabbit. So you put in a lot of shit, right? You do a lot of stuff to try to find the gold, and sometimes you got to go through it. But once you find that one and that person's tied in, you can build on it, right? So you're looking at like if I said, John, I'll give you $10,000 cash right now if you could get 7 people in training this week. Would you be able to do it? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, I would do that. And then what I would do is I would average 120 names, very minimum, right? And then what I would do is I would do everything that I just taught. And here's the next step. Get them to show to advanced training, get them to post on Snapchat. It's not gonna happen overnight. This is the trick. Then from there, on day 11, when they're still around, you get them to do Snapchat program. Now you're consistently generating applications. That's what I would do, right? So your cousin, your brother, whoever it is, get creative, get somebody to do it. And here's the truth. If you can't get somebody to do it, you don't have conviction in the job. Like, I just want to be real with you. They're like, well, my people have already done it. You think I invented this program. You think my people haven't done it 100 times? But
Right.
they're bought in. Everybody, not one of my people say, well, Dave, I've already done Snapchat 32 times. They're like, okay, I get the point. Because I'll pull up all their applications that I get and I'm like, here's what happens when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they understand the why behind it. Right? So I think that's a big point. And I know Jared helped Jacob with that. But here's the difference, Jacob. Every week, imagine doing that every week for 100 weeks straight.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. Well, that's what we did. So like you look at the results, but I've done it for 100 weeks straight. Never missing 1 week. Sometimes I got 200 applications. Sometimes I got 10. But I just never stopped doing it. So there's a lot of compound interest in that. Right? That's the trick. So, Kathy, like that would be my advice is implement that program and do it every single week. And when you're doing that, look for characteristics.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Awesome sauce.